nice to meet every one of you, and congratulations on this new group. My name's Susan Grover. I teach at the law school. I've been teaching over there for 26 years. And the reason why Brian thought to invite me, I think the main reason he thought to invite me, well, for one thing, because I'm very supportive, and he knew I'd be supportive of the group. But also, I happen to be, against my better judgment, I agreed to be the vice president of the William & Mary Faculty Assembly this year. And in that capacity, I've been tangentially involved in the adoption by the Faculty Assembly of a policy, which is like the #1 item on our discussion list here, domestic partner benefits. And so it's not really a policy, rather it is a resolution that the Faculty Assembly adopted here unanimously. And so Brian knew about that and said, well, why don't you come and tell our group about it? So I said, well, I don't know how much I have to say about it, but I'll tell them what I know, and then also I'm writing an article. Maybe they'll give me some stories from my article, quid pro quo. Anybody studied Latin? No, what's quid pro quo? Professor Greenia, what is quid pro quo?
One thing for another.
Very well done. A+.
So I couldn't answer from Latin, no.
What did you say?
I could only answer that from a law perspective.
From a law perspective, right, because we have that. In the law, it's like a bargain for exchange, like the quid pro quo. You give somebody money and they give you a house, and that's a quid pro quo. Anyway, back to this new resolution. I'll just give you the background because you might be interested. It might have been in the student newspaper, but maybe not the whole thing. Hello. You want to introduce yourselves since you're here? We're just starting.
Sure, I'm Julie. I'm Kira.
Hi, Julie and Kira. And what do you study?
I'm a freshman, so I'm in the play. So,
Well, it's nice to see you all. Make yourselves at home. Okay, so do you all know Jeff Trammell? Okay, and he, you know, was the first openly gay rector that we've had, and the rector is the guy who heads the whole board of visitors here, which sort of tells the rest of us, or sort of tells the administration what to do in a way. So Jeff Trammell was the rector, and then his term ended, and he suggested to us on the Faculty Assembly that the next step to take to do something about discrimination against gay people or LGBT or GLBT, whatever people within Virginia, would be for the faculty to adopt a resolution recommending that the college adopt a partner benefits policy so that everybody would have the same rights and benefits under college policies. And so, do you know David Dessler? Somebody do. David Dessler, Professor Dessler? Yeah, well, he's on the committee, and he did a lot of the research for us, or on the Assembly. He heads up the Faculty Affairs Committee of the Assembly. Did a lot of research, what other schools do, and so on, and brought it to the Faculty Assembly, and the Faculty Assembly voted unanimously to adopt this resolution, recommending to the administration and to the Board of Visitors that domestic partner benefits be provided to all people, no sex, no gender orientation, or other discrimination of that sort. Come on in. Who are you and?
My name's Danielle, and I'm
What are you studying?
studying American Studies and Government.
Excellent, then you're allowed to come in.
Thank you.
So, okay. Anybody here know Suzanne Raitt? Suzanne Raitt, English? Well, you're all really on the political side of it. Suzanne Raitt is a really great English professor here, and she's the president of this faculty assembly body, and she's very aggressive about pursuing policies. She's very hardworking. So you see on your list here all these schools? Well, Jeff Trammell told her the next thing to do after passing this resolution is contact every faculty assembly at every single school in the state of Virginia, every state school, and recommend that they pass these resolutions as well. And so she did. And she's been back and forth with all these people, and this is her progress report on how things are going. And a number of these schools, there's one that Virginia Tech was supposed to go in November, but that's going to happen in the new year, actually. But as you can see here, action is being taken, and it's somewhat because William and Mary suggested that everybody should be looking into this. And so I think that that's, don't quote me on that, but I do think Suzanne's energetic leadership has made a difference here, and it's very exciting to be working with her. And the Board of Visitors, when I did tell them that we had adopted this, were excited about it. So I will note for you, and I put it on this list, that at George Mason University, the Student Senate passed a similar resolution. And one thing we consider is whether, if our student assembly, is that what we call it? Has not yet passed such a resolution, it would make sense for the student assembly to demonstrate support for this as well. And, oh, I should have brought a copy of it. You've seen the resolution probably, many of you have. I think it was in the student newspaper, we gave it to them. But if you haven't, you could go to the William and Mary Faculty Assembly website and have a look at the resolution. But it's really silly that we don't have these benefits. So we're way behind the time. It makes us look as though we discriminate, because we are discriminating really by depriving some people of their health care benefits. So ultimately we'll catch up. But of course the problem is we are in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And whoever is going to be, I mean, we have a governor who I think will be quite supportive. I don't know about the Attorney General and what's going to happen with that, but the Attorney General whoever's up there in that office does sometimes kind of try to put a damper on affording equal rights to citizens in Virginia. So if we have the wrong Attorney General, once this recount is done, and I assume there's going to be a recount, that's the thing that I think that could stand in our way of actually beginning to enjoy equal rights when it comes to employee benefits, health care benefits, and so on. What questions are there for me? Professor Duenia.
George is fine.
George, I'm just teasing you. Yeah.
Thank you. UVA is not on this list.
No, it's not.
Where's their
Well,
status?
they haven't done anything. I mean, Suzanne did contact them, but they have not, to my knowledge, done anything. Now, all of this is just to my knowledge. No, I don't think they've taken any action yet.
We learned from our last speaker, Claire Costengaga. Did I get it that time? It's a G. That UVA is self-insured.
Yes, we are.
So they could, if they wanted to, extend these benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So does it make any sense for them to pass some sort of resolution as a public school when they could technically give these?
Well,
these
yes,
benefits?
I think it does, because if I understand the situation there correctly, it would be easier for them to give those benefits at their school. So it would make all the more sense for the faculty to make use of the power that they have to influence the administration to give these benefits immediately.
Why aren't they? Like, what is the
I don't know.
politics there?
I don't know. Does anybody know anything about what's going on with these issues that you, George?
In the past, the General Assembly has threatened any university or college in the state system, if we granted domestic partner benefits, they would cut our appropriation by an equal amount, just as a punitive gesture. I think we should have done it because the amounts in question are so small that we could shrug off their penalization. But it sets up a bad working relationship with the General Assembly. So I don't know where it's going to go next. But since UVA has its own university hospital and HMO, they do have greater flexibility.
They do, I think, yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that it would make a great deal of sense for the faculty at the University of Virginia to pass a resolution like some of the other schools have done. For one thing, the voice of the University of Virginia is a very powerful voice, not just in Virginia, but nationwide, and would be an important addition to our effort to achieve equality here for our employees. And by the way, this is all employees. It's not just faculty or something like that. It's everybody who works at William and Mary qualifies for that. But so I would love it if the University of Virginia would take that step. Now, there were a couple of other questions. Yes?
Just similarly, none of the smaller public schools were on here, so I was wondering if they were not included or something like that.
Which schools are you thinking, like?
Like Radford and
Oh, you know, I didn't know Radford was a public school.
thought it was in Maryland. Possible.
Well, no, you're probably right. So there we are, but I know for example, all of the community colleges would be
Yeah,
another
those two,
example
yeah.
of what you're describing. And of course, their numbers of employees are vast, and it could be, I think it would make sense for us, if we really are gonna try to be the leaders of this in the state of Virginia, for us to reach out to those bodies as well. And I think Suzanne really started with this group because, just because of time constraints, but it would make a great deal of sense for us to encourage them to join us in passing these resolutions. That's a great idea. Yeah.
How has the administration received this so far?
Very well. Taylor Reevely and Michael Haller are the two people that I've talked to about this. Come on in. Welcome. Are very enthusiastic. They express enthusiasm, and they think it's strange that we don't already have these. And you know, they can look at it from a strictly business point of view as well and say we can't compete for faculty because you know, if we're discriminating in provision of employee benefits, then I don't want to work there. And they don't have to be gay to say they don't want to work there, because a lot of people don't want to work for an institution that's discriminating against certain categories of people like that. So they seem openly, expressly very to see this as a matter of course, it's a matter of time. But there's a big issue in Richmond because, of course, Richmond, whether it's the Attorney General or the General Assembly, whatever happens, they have to be supportive of this, or they'll continue to squelch it when we try to do this. Yes, there was another, yes.
When we started this club back in September, one of the big initiatives we wanted to push was in the privileges, rights, and immunities section of the, it's like the founding document that the student handbook is.
Yes.
So we wanted to protect against discrimination based on sexual orientation and identity. We wanted to add that in there next to the other items. I actually literally ran into the provost a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to him about this, and he said that we have a very difficult time pushing for this when we still technically, when we do not give the partner benefits, because we are still discriminating at that level. So I just wanted he was just, I brought it up right when we were talking, so it's not like he had time to think about this. But I just, for your point of view, is that going to be an issue when our college still is not giving benefits? Or?
I had never thought of that, but it's certainly a good legal argument. I think the lawyers present will agree that you can make that argument, that we can't say that equality of rights exists if we're not giving equality in the benefits. There might be a way around it. It's complicated.
We still want to go, just as a visibility thing, we still want to move with this, and it would highlight issues, if anything, it'll show we are discriminating.
Yeah.
But just, I was kind of concerned because there might, like when Professor Greenya came to talk with us too, was talking about other issues that, like at the gym, for instance, technically partners are allowed to or have access, but it's not anywhere, officially written that they. So I'm wondering if because we do, they don't have equal access to everything on campus, if that will be a roadblock for.
I think that's an excellent argument that I actually just haven't thought of. But just out of curiosity, at our gym, at the campus gym, do partners have access where spouses would have access? Okay. Yeah, so that we have. We just don't know the benefits. So.
But I think a lot of these cases, it's permitted, but it's not technically explicit anywhere?
It's not advertised, it's not announced, it's not in the literature. It's because Linda Knight, who runs the recreational sports on campus, is a lesbian, and she says, I'm not going to discriminate
Right.
against anyone.
Good. Well, I thought it slipped away, but I think that you're right that adopting a policy that we do not discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity or gender expression or, however far you want to go, would cause us to examine what policies we have and begin to bring them in compliance. I mean, when you're with lawyers around there, everybody's concerned, well, if we develop this policy and put it in place, then those who feel they're being treated unequally can sue for violation of the policy. They'll have a lawsuit there. I think that because the Attorney General, the last Attorney General, was so against equality when it came to gender identity or any of those things, we had sort of adopted a policy. We're on the path. George probably has a clearer memory of this than I do, and put it up there, and then he said, well, you can't do that. You'll be in violation of the law. What was the threat that came down out of that, George? Do you remember?
How far back do we go? To the Dillon Rule?
No. I'm just thinking of a couple of years ago, we put something up in the privileges section. Did we not?
Do you mean when King Cuccinelli sent out the letter to scare everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when Ken Cuccinelli sent his letter. That's what.
I forget the details of that.
Yeah.
But lots of organizations have different statements from different sectors within the organization. And a lot of times you're playing catch up. But saying we have to play catch up with what the students have said,
Yeah.
and I think it's a brilliant move for the students, for student organizations to claim the moral high ground.
Yeah.
Because the shame factor is so effective on the faculty and administration. Look, students are way ahead of the curve, way ahead of us on this. So the students all want it. Shouldn't we catch up to our student body? I think you guys have more leverage than you suspect.
Yeah, I mean, you're the client. You are the college, and we're here to serve you. The college is here to serve you. And so what you want should always, you should assert what you want and what the students need, and we should give you that if we can. You're paying our salaries. You're paying for the support of this institution. And if there's something that the school should be doing that we're not doing, you should tell us what it is. I'm totally with you on that, George. There were other hands, I think. Now, well, I'm all for the students, whether a small group or a big group, taking a stand and saying these rights need to be afforded, and sort of slowly but surely raising people's confidence. You wouldn't believe how unconscious we tend to be. Old, faculty and administrators, they get old, they've got a million problems to worry about, and they're not thinking so much, or we are not thinking so much about what is right, what is wrong, is the institution operating the way it should. We're worried about kind of getting things done that have to be done today, making sure that people are signed up for the classes, or, so you could see it as your job to, as George says, take the high ground and say, hey, this institution needs to do X, Y, and Z, and you should never feel shy about doing that. And find faculty alliances, find faculty or administrators who are with you and who will support you in that. And I know we, both of us, are two of those. Any other questions or suggestions on this first topic? Yeah.
Just another kind of policy question. So recently, another issue that students have come to ask me about and have come to talk with the organization about is being able to use restrooms if they, when you identify. One big question is, like, what is our policy on this right now? And people have come looking to us to figure that out, and we're kind of looking to figure that out too.
Well, this is an issue that, I used to be the EO director here, so it's an issue that I've grappled with, and I've seen lots of lawyers around the country grapple with, and there's a pretty straightforward answer if you ask lawyers who are involved in this, and that is you must have you must offer a solitary restroom where one person can go in and lock the door. No, I don't mean legally you must, but that's all you can do if you get into those complicated situations where this group, says, well, this is a male and this is a female, and people are getting upset about who's using the restroom. You need to have some spots around the campus where there are unitary stalls. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm. It just doesn't seem to be enough when, some people might feel marginalized by not being able to use a restroom.
Oh, well, I see what you're
I
saying.
can comment on that a little.
Yeah.
Well, the issue is gender neutral restrooms, and it seems like William and Mary is much behind the curve of the more progressive schools, especially on gender neutral issues for housing and restrooms. Like my undergrad had probably 20 gender neutral restrooms throughout campus, and I don't know of a single one here.
I know there are 2 single-person restrooms in the Sadler Center. They're kind of to the left of the info desk. There's a hallway, and it's half office, but there are 2 restrooms there that are single-use, gender neutral.
There's one in the back.
Is it a single unit or is it a gender neutral?
It's
Are they properly marked?
They have like the picture with like the male
Line.
figure
Uh-huh.
line female,
Oh, okay.
but like it's single, so
Got it,
it's
a single
fine.
stall kind of.
Yeah, and I think, I might have heard this wrong, but I thought they said that in all the dorms, that there was at least one, that there was one bathroom that was, that had both, like the sign with like the male and the female.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
that's right, and I know there's one in our dorm, I think there's all in like, at least all in like, in Botetourt, there's definitely like one dorm, and one bathroom in every single dorm that's gender neutral.
Well, and so that's a basic that we need, and hopefully that's the practice of providing such restrooms is expanding around the campus. I mean, maybe it's not perfect yet, but hopefully we're moving in that direction. But Brian's talking about something slightly different, which
Well,
is,
both.
Yeah.
Gender neutral housing as well.
yes, right. And this is something several years ago, the Student Assembly did put in a resolution on that and try to get that adopted, because I remember writing something for them. And I think that did not happen. And in fact, I think that there was a sense that students wanted to use this to sort of live with their girlfriends and boyfriends, and that, it was a bad idea or something. It does seem like at most colleges people aren't thinking like that anymore. If the students are treated as grown-ups, but I think that maybe we are actually worried about those old moralistic things. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most people actually I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday, and we were saying how people use that as an excuse to live with their boyfriends or girlfriends. And I think most people agree that's not a good idea. And I think a lot of people don't do that actually. I think most people agree that's not an idea. And I think most people, especially here, would understand that the reasoning for having that kind of policy in place. I would hope they would.
And so you're not in favor of gender neutral housing?
No, I am. No,
Okay.
I'm just saying that that some people who say that you would use it to live with their boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah, that that's a bad idea.
That
Yeah.
doesn't. I hope in a place like this, that people would understand the purpose of that kind of policy.
Yeah, you would
You would hope,
expect,
but-
because a lot of colleges, I remember working at a college I think it was in the 70s, and it was gender neutral housing up in New York. I've had a hand here, Brian, so I'll come to this hand, and then I will come back to you, my friend.
Just a question about the bathrooms again. If a transgender student was to use the bathroom with which they identify with, and someone were to complain, would the college protect the transgender student's choice, or?
I've only read a few cases on this subject. Were you in my class at City? Were you in my class at City? Well, anyway, doesn't matter. The courts are not real friendly toward the transgender individual who complains about discrimination. So you're saying a transgender individual who is now female is using the female restroom, and other
Someone else is
females in there say this person shouldn't be doing that. Yeah, I don't have a clear-cut answer for you, but the courts have not been friendly to protecting the rights of the transgender individual.
And you have no idea at the conclusion at our school level, something that the administration would take a stance on?
I think that the way the administration would likely to respond to a situation like that if they could, and especially if they could do it proactively, would be to get a restroom available for that individual, so there would not be this, you know, some things, the stage of if you're actually shifting from being one sex to being another sex, then sometimes there's a line drawn at what point you become physically that other sex. But if there's a transgender where there's anatomically somebody is going to keep being one sex, but is completely identified with the other and has essentially become that other sex, I think it gets more complicated for how courts and probably how William and Mary would look at it.
That's more what I was like looking to clarify. And would you know who would be kind of the point person on what like the official policy?
Yeah, I would talk to Ginger Ambler.
Ginger Ambler.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, what would you do, George? Would you talk to Ginger about that?
Yeah.
I think that's where I'd start.
First, I do a survey of facilities on campus to find out about gender-neutral bathroom facilities.
Yeah.
Anna Martin, would she?
Well, she's certainly got the physical plant stuff, and she can be responsive, yeah.
Right. And then Ginger Ambler for policy.
Yeah.
I was recently at Mount Holyoke College, and the president of Mount Holyoke told me that at any given moment, they have between 6 and 8 women transitioning to male.
Uh-huh.
And she just feels, one, it's going to be business as usual for colleges going into the future. And two, it's a great opportunity to build a conversation on her campus about, we're not going to throw out these people because they're transitioning. They came here, they enrolled as students, they have a right to graduate. We're going to make accommodations as necessary to make sure that they can graduate and comfortably.
Well, I think we're in theory, we're doing that here. So I think that if you talk to the leadership here, if you talk to Taylor, Michael Haller, and those people over there, I think that they will probably express agreement with the Mount Holyoke president. It's a matter of getting things done, I suspect. And you're right, Anna Martin can tell us what we've got here already. So she's the vice president of administration. Yeah, so.
Sorry, do you know our policies on transgender housing? If someone comes in transgender, do we have any kind of policy in place for this? What if they get put into female or
I don't know what we're currently doing. My guess is a case-by-case situation, but I think assigning a roommate to somebody when they're just coming in for their first year, if I were assigning housing and that person were just coming in for their first year, I'd be inclined to give them a single room. Because I couldn't make that decision for the 2 people just assigning a random roommate. But yeah, Brian.
It's a lot more complicated than that, though, because when you do live in a dorm, you're not just with your roommate, you're with the hall,
Oh, yeah.
the bathroom.
Oh, we
you
have
share-
no co-ed dorms?
We have no co-ed
Yeah,
dorms.
right.
Which I think is very
We have
problematic.
co-ed dorms, but we don't have co-ed floors, and so there would still be that issue of.
I have no idea.
I think our school should work with the University of Louisville, because that's where I went for undergrad, and they have an LGBT housing segment. It's like 1 floor or something like that, and it's specifically available for people to apply that feel that they need the facilities. And they also have an LGBT services center to help with issues like that.
It seems to me that
And
the
they've got a lot of leverage with the administration too.
They do have.
But not like
The application for admission, or it's not the application for admission, but the form that you submit to say you're going to come to William & Mary seemingly should have something on it so that you can say, who you are and what your orientation is. But I suspect there isn't such a thing, and that's the kind of lobbying that a group like this, like William and Larry, could start moving forward. Communicate with Ginger Ambler. I think she'll be receptive to hearing what is it William & Mary needs to do to be competitive, really, with other universities, and to do for our students what other universities are already doing. I think she'll be eager to hear about that. But I don't know the answer to your question. Okay. Now, who else had some comments? There was one new person, was that you?
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to say your name?
No, I'm Tyler. Sorry, my class just set out.
That's okay.
I'm a junior.
Hi, Joe.
You got Diane back.
Oh,
Miss
hey,
Diane.
you were quiet. Okay, your name is what?
Diane.
And what are you studying?
Applied science.
We do have a good spectrum in here. No Spanish, though. We could go down like this.
Can I ask about, is there any way to talk to the Dean of Admission? Because Henry Broadus should be broadcasting, and I think he's friendly to this too, a message of welcome for people who are looking at William and Mary. We should make sure that high school kids checking out various campuses know that this is a friendly place.
Yeah.
And you've got to be preemptive about this. If you have to wait until you make their pick, they come to William and Mary, then they get to ask, that's really too late in the game.
Then they get to ask what?
Yeah.
What kind of accommodations?
Well, is this a friendly place? Am I going to
No.
be safe here?
That's my next question, because, is it? I mean,
Depends on who you're around.
who you're around, because there's some people at William and Mary who are still bigoted, and all of us can sometime or another be on the receiving end of that. But, so is the sense in this room that it's a reasonably safe place for an intelligent person who has the good sense to stay away from toxic people, and, yeah.
So I volunteer with undergraduate admissions section, so I get asked that question a good amount of times, and I always say yes. And I always say that, you know, you can always find your niche, and that there's always going to be that kind of like support group if you're looking for it, that you'll find it here at William and Mary. So like joining this club, I kind of wondered if that was the right answer. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so because you don't want to draw people on any false premise. I mean, it's everyone's job to put up our safe zone plaques and everything and make sure everybody knows. Yay.
I'm a safe zone.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear.
You're so great. Yeah, Brian.
I was going to say, personally, I've never really felt afraid, but I am a large, tall, white guy, so I might not be. But I have, in one instance, been a little fearful. Like, I was walking later in the evening towards campus on like Richmond Road, and I was just like, a group of guys just yelled "fag" at me, and I was like, I wasn't even like wearing my gay shirt or anything. So I was like, how'd you know?
You just sparkle of fabulousness.
I know. But anyway, so I was just a little concerned, and especially like because like groupthink is such a scary thing.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like especially like I've seen guys like catcall at women, so I can only imagine like some of the things that go on for people that are like trans, especially because
Oh,
I
yeah.
have a friend that's trans, and I know he gets harassed regularly.
Here in Williamsburg?
Well, he might not actually be trans. I'm not exactly sure. That's a tough conversation to have with somebody. But
Well,
yes,
we do have several people
he
that I
lives here in
know.
Williamsburg, and he doesn't always dress with the gender
He's
that
gender.
he was born with. Yeah. But it just depends on the day. But sometimes he'll be like harassed, and I do
On
want-
campus or in Williamsburg? Maybe.
I feel like you can't really separate the two.
I guess my bigger question for you would be how to fix it. Are there, yeah.
Well, like one thing that I've noticed is like a very like heteronormative attitude on campus, like that's like a huge thing for me. Okay, like especially like yesterday, like on Facebook, like I saw like this survey that was from like a biology class that I'm in, and someone put up a survey, and first they were studying like male and female interactions like on like a first date, and saying like this has a connection, I swear, I'll get to it. So and like saying like how many times you've been on a date where like you've actually not actually wanted to be in a committed relationship with that person, you just wanted to like hook up with that person or whatever. So then she put that up and she asked the question that way, like how many times you've been on a date that you haven't actually wanted to be in a relationship in. And then she amended it and put how many times you've been on a heterosexual date that you haven't actually thought about being committed in. And I was like, in a committed relationship. And I was like, that's so weird. But like, that's just like one example of just like, I don't know, there's just like a lot of, like, especially with like the beginning of the year, there's all those like awkward mixers and everything with like the OA, like all the like orientation people, like it's so annoying. So like we're like a guy's hall, being made for like a girl's hall, like
What's an OA?
Orientation assistant.
It's like an RA, but like
It's like
for
an
orientation.
And so, I mean, there's just this presumption that everybody's kind of.
Yeah, and everybody's like, oh, I'm an ally and everything, but they don't. But people have not learned to like use gender neutral pronouns and learn to be aware that not everyone is.
I mean, I don't have gender neutral pronouns, but I do know that I don't know who I'm talking to, and I think in the classroom this happens where people say these things that they're so presumptuous about who's in the classroom. So I agree that's a consciousness raising thing. The more people who go to safe zone or something like that, slowly but surely will start learning, oh, my presuppositions are way off. And I again lost my train of thought, but I think I was rambling anyway. Did I answer your question?
Oh, I didn't have a question. I just said,
comment.
I was just wondering, because you asked like, how do we fix it? So I was
Yeah,
like,
how do we fix it?
That's a great when you ask the question.
Yeah, I asked. This is my teaching assistant back.
Do you want to talk a little on your research?
Well, my research is kind of about that, but Brian, there was one other hand raised, so maybe I'll take it and then I'll tell you about my brilliant research.
Oh, me. Okay, awesome. So just one of the things that like I went back to school and like I was back home over Thanksgiving. I was talking with my friends about their schools and everything, and we were talking, and my one friend, she was talking about how all her professors asked her, on the first day of school, they asked what their names were, where they were from, and what their pronoun was, and I thought that was something that would be good here at William and Mary, and I just don't know on what level like that could be.
What school was that?
It was one of the SUNY schools up in New York.
See, I would object to that because I can't remember all that.
Yeah.
That's why. So it'd be nice, but it's nice because it's empowering of students. So it's nice if we can at least say I prefer to go by this or that, but the fact, don't expect me even to remember my own name because I can't. Yeah.
It's changing a little bit,
Okay.
but just my own. Rob, myself, and another student, we've all seen, since we've gotten involved in this, how much our own families have changed in their own perspectives, like how, because my mom's she's a Democrat. She's usually to the left on subjects, but she's Catholic. I went to an all-male Catholic high school, and that's just kind of my background, and a couple of my other friends too. But it's amazing how just when you're involved in this, and she hears, and how my other friends that are involved with this, how their families have become, they've changed completely. And I keep thinking of like the Black Civil Rights Movement, how it was, you meet people who are Black, and because you don't understand the culture, you don't know anybody, it's much easier to be bigoted.
Yeah.
And like when I got here, because I went to that high school and I was involved in student government freshman year. We helped do throw a dance, like a rave. And I remember it was the first time I saw gay men dancing with each other, and I was kind of shocked. But then just having friends in my hall that were gay and getting to know these people, it completely changed my point of view. So I think that's the strength of, like when we were doing our t-shirts, where we have our club listed, and it kind of takes people, like that. I wanted this to sort of be an awareness organization too, because I think once you normalize it, then it becomes people become much more open. Like it just took having a conversation with my mom and telling her about what we're doing for her to completely change her stance. And my stance too. Like I didn't really have a stance, but I just became more accepting once I was connected with people. So I think that's a benefit of having like Lambda around or other groups like this, where it just becomes part of the daily conversation. And Professor Gringa hit on that too in his talk when you were talking about, like, today we could bring up subjects like that in class, or subjects that touch on gender identity, and people don't kind of shudder and it's not
Mostly.
embarrassing.
Mostly, yeah.
But it's evolving in that way, and I think that's what we can do, or help do.
Absolutely, what you guys can do.
Right.
What you all can do.
But it's amazing, like, my one friend, he's not here tonight too, but he was just saying, like,
Just
his
one of them.
well, it's individual stories that you hear. But his family's from the deep south of Virginia, and they, like, never, it's not something that even comes up. But then his mom just requested to join our group, and, you know, like, she's all excited about it too. But it's like connecting with, just having the conversation is really important, I think. And once you know somebody that's involved.
Oh, yes. Yes, you're doing a lot of good simply by existing and talking to people. Okay, we'll come to Brian, then we'll come to you. and then
I was
I'll
just
tell
gonna
you
say, it's important to also realize your limitations of that as well, because we're assuming that the reasonable people will be more accepting, but people that, like, have beliefs that are really staunch, especially like a moral belief against it, aren't gonna be as accommodating. Like, for instance, a lot of people's families might be more accommodating when they get involved, but, like, I came out and my parents still aren't okay with it.
Right.
So I think you have to be very cognizant on how you present it and how you're perceived by others. It's like not being forceful with it.
Over here and then back to you. Were you going to respond to the same issue?
Kind of to your general question.
Okay, let's come here because you're responding directly to Brian.
I was just going to say, it's kind of general exposure is the way to remove, like, eradicate that. And it's getting harder and harder for people to not have their personal bubble cursed by this issue. And I think time is going to take care of this issue in general. I mean, we definitely have to push for public policy on specific legal issues that we have, but I think over time people are just going to be more and more open-minded because it's just apparent you have to either accommodate or you.
Yeah, and in fact, maybe the strength of negative reactions are so strong because it's a smaller and smaller insular group of bigots, you know, and so they'll get louder and louder, maybe, yeah.
I mean, people move out to the country to get away from the variety that you find in their city. So
Okay.
it's kind of early, rural area.
Yeah, I mean, driving west to go out to a place where I go to do yoga, the signs for the conservative candidates get bigger and bigger. So I get a little bit scared. Now, you were next, and then we'll come back.
Just to comment on the general atmosphere of William and Mary, which is that I identify as queer, and I have never felt unsafe, but I have felt that it is extremely necessary to find a niche here, whereas in other schools it seems like it's not so necessary.
And sort of be out there.
Yeah, it's taken for granted that this is something that is accepted, that is normalized, that isn't going to be an issue. Whereas William and Mary, oftentimes I felt, at least, I don't know if this is kind of universal for people who identify as LGBTQ, but I felt that there is kind of a need to censor and kind of test the waters and see, like, what kind of people am I dealing with here. I don't know if a lot of people who are out in their halls, for example, like a lot of people, for example, in Lambda will come and say, like, this is the only place that I can be out. Like, you can't tell other people this because, like, this is the only place I feel not safe, but that I feel comfortable being out. And so that's something that, like, everybody's been saying, that awareness would definitely help. Because there's also the opposite end, which is people who have never experienced this and they say, oh, I'm not opposed to the idea, I just don't know a lot about it. I've heard that a lot in my dorm. So that's my two cents.
It's kind of interesting. I'm listening to and thinking of my own life and how the older I get, the less I notice all of those people out there who would be against me if they knew what I think. And so you develop some calluses as you get older, which makes it a little bit easier to kind of be out there. But it's a problem that I think that's not peculiar to William and Mary. our professions, or we're in the legal profession, that profession really has it where they're, among a lot of other lawyers, you're not gonna act the way you will among your friends. But yes.
I was just gonna say, I definitely agree with what you were just saying. Like, I'm always fairly cautious about who I come out to, just like test the waters a little bit, like exactly what you're saying. But I will tell you, it's a lot easier after freshman year because you're not constantly living and surrounded by people that you didn't choose to be surrounded by necessarily. Once you just establish a really strong friend group, you don't need to worry about like the freshman hall dynamic, which is completely different from like other dynamics of the school thing.
Oh, that's a great.
I'll touch on what you just said too. I actually use the diversity session that we have, like as part of the orientation, to actually like come out to my hall. But like I felt very like comfortable. I felt very comfortable in my hall. My hall is very like we're like a really good hall, so I can't speak for everyone. But like I felt comfortable with that. But I can't say that like here like I do like I'm confused as like to some people like if like for example like faculty or like other people here, like what their views are on things. And it's like a little like unsettling. I understand like what you're kind of saying. And I wonder if like, if what was suggested earlier about like, with like what are your preferred pronouns or something like that could just really break down the barriers, and that could make a huge difference for a lot of these people who are just sitting down, they're like, I don't know what they think of me. So like, as opposed to that, why don't we just break the barrier down when we first get here?
You do that, would you do that in every class?
I think it would be a great idea, like, because it's a lot better than sitting there not knowing.
I mean, one thing about that is that, I mean, I see some head shaking, no, but one thing would be that every person in the front of the room would at least confront the issue. Because we stand up here thinking everybody's like us, you know. I mean, we just, it's horrible. That's what my research is about. But, so I sort of like the idea of giving faculty instruction. Oh, I know it's something I said.
I'm horribly offended.
Have a good class.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure, I'm happy to. What was I saying?
Important
People
for faculty.
Yeah, to realize that there's diversity in the classroom. And if faculty were trained to ask a question like that, or if faculty just received training that, yeah, you know, the classroom has a lot of people who become very distracted when you essentialize everything and act as if everybody in the class were a white male, for example, heterosexual at the age of 22. If you act that way, everybody else in the room, and there are many other categories of people in the room, are going to be distracted because they are being discriminated against when that happens. I think that kind of training is something faculty need, but I don't see it happening a whole lot. I do think it's helpful to faculty. Some certain faculty still haven't learned some of that stuff. Yes, ma'am, and then to faculty.
I think though, even you were saying before that, you know, even like, you know, going around the room saying, you know, where I'm from, what pronoun I use, even though, you know, it wouldn't be, the faculty wouldn't necessarily remember it, I think it's also would be a good way to show that the William & Mary community is more open, because if that's something that I can tell, you know, all the kids who ask me like, oh, what's the environment here like when they come to the admissions office to ask about, you know, the LGBT environment, it's something I could say like, hey, look, like we have, you know, the faculty ask about your pronouns, and we have like gender neutral bathrooms, like that's something that we're going to try to work on.
Yeah. And so you're working over there with Henry, so you could actually be a conduit of these kinds of ideas into Henry Broads. He's a wonderful guy too. I'm very open. And so good. Brian, I had somebody in the back, and then I'll come back. Yes.
Just briefly, just in maybe a little bit of contrast, I've never felt uncomfortable on campus at all, or even Williamsburg, about sharing or showing my sexuality. In a weird, interesting coincidence, Res Life, when they sorted us into our freshman dorms, put 5 openly gay males on one hall, and then an openly gay female on the same floor. So we just had a very particularly sexuality diverse floor, and so it was never an issue as part of everything. And so I think just because of that, you know, we're all very comfortable with.
Did you ever learn whether they did that on purpose?
I don't think they could have known before.
Yeah.
Because
Nobody asked for it.
I don't think there's anything that says like put your sexuality down.
Yeah, no, that would not be good.
It was a very interesting sort of coincidence that happened. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yes, Brian?
I was just going to say, I would not force it on the teachers to
I don't think we would, yeah.
Because the teachers that don't want to do it won't do it. And I think it's painting a big target on your back for those teachers as well.
Well, I'll tell you something
There's
else
like-
though, and go ahead, you finish.
Because like I have a professor now that gets like the more exotic names wrong. Like he calls Bahid Bahid, and he calls Carl Carol all the time. And I'm just like,
Carl is
Carl
not
is not
exotic.
Yeah.
okay, it is spelled Karel. So he calls him Carol.
Okay, well, I have to answer this, and this is something, we only have George on the diversity committee. I was on there for more than 10 years, I think. And did a lot of work that also went down the drain. None of my effort, I think, ever paid off. But one thing I advocated for was that these evaluations that students fill out at the end of the semester should include giving faculty credit or taking away credit based on whether that was a welcoming classroom, based on, its gender identity and just all these facts, encourage the students to speak up about how they're experiencing the classroom and encourage the deans or their chairs to hand out salary based on whether it was an inclusive and welcoming classroom. Are we doing our jobs or are we not? Because when we're not having an inclusive classroom, I know I offended you. When our classroom is not inclusive, everybody who's excluded is distracted. When my classroom is not inclusive, I am not doing my job because there are students in there who, instead of thinking about what we're trying to teach, are thinking about why is she calling us that? Why is she using that terminology? And so I'm interfering with their education, really. It's very straightforward. So I think, Brian, that would be a way of achieving what we're talking about more directly, in a way. If I know that I'm going to be evaluated based on what kind of classroom experience I'm creating, I'll start being more careful about it.
Well, that and the turnout question puts a lot of people on the spot, too.
The students in the
Yeah.
class.
Some people might not want to come out in the classroom, and like some people are still struggling with the issue. So,
Yeah. Yes.
Without a policy, or I don't know, without like having that specifically in our like student conduct code, or like our
Which thing?
the
rights privileges.
the rights privileges. Sorry, I
Do
don't
you
know
mean gender
the proper
identity and expression?
terminology for this. Yeah, with gender expression and sexual orientation. Without having that explicitly stated, could we actually use that as like something
Wait a
that?
minute, I think we do have sexual orientation, don't we?
No, not in the rights, privileges, and immunity. It's in the student handbook. It's
Okay,
not in
and
the-
it's in the president's,
Interpretation.
the president's interpretation. Got it. Okay, go ahead.
But without that explicitly stated, could we use that as yeah, could we use that as a criteria for professors? Like, I don't know,
Absolutely.
isn't that an issue?
Yeah, I mean, because what we're talking about is this professor making the educational opportunity accessible?
thank you so much.
Thank you for being there. Accessible equally to all students. Now, if I'm discriminating against one group, marginalizing one group, that group does not have equal access. It doesn't matter the reason, who the group is. I need to teach every student in my class. So I think we have plenty of legal arguments for why, without having a gender identity protection or anything like that, we have to give education to every student. And for example, if a student has dyslexia or has visual impairments, we accommodate everything. And we don't, I don't stand up here when I have students with this disability or that disability, it's a strange analogy, I shouldn't do it, but, and say things that are going to distract them from the material uncovered. Or I don't make rape jokes. That's kind of good. I don't make rape jokes. There are people in every classroom, most classrooms, who have been raped. So why would I exclude that category and distract them from the material? So I'm rambling, I know, but no, I don't think you need any kind of protection in the rights and responsibilities in order to reward faculty for creating an inclusive classroom.
Even if faculty say that it, for example, would coincide with their religious or moral beliefs, like to
Interesting, yeah, that's a nice intersection, isn't it? No, I would say that faculty who are marginalizing students are not doing the job that we hired them to do. So they may not like, some faculty may have a religious objection to women in the classroom or all kinds of things, just to make it simple, but they have to instruct
But
those.
those people, there are laws in Virginia in place
Oh,
to
to
say that.
prohibit
Yeah,
sex,
to
very
prohibit,
good point,
yeah.
very good point.
That's
No,
right.
I think that every student, we can't accept students and then not educate them, I would say. So I think I might be trying to simplify your argument, and it can't be done. I think it's a very good argument. And sort of, so, because your argument could be taken to the extension of well, you know, what about people who are, you know, I mean, but let's turn that around, because I'll tell you what Taylor Reevely says, the president of the school says, that we don't discriminate on any ground, so any ground at all. So only the quality of the work done. So if I stand in here, you know, redheads are not protected under the law. And if I stand in here and make disparaging comments about redheads, I'm failing to do my job. Or people who come from Pennsylvania, there might be, there's no protection there. And under the Constitution there is, but that's not going to boil down here. I can't do things in class that I know are going to marginalize a category of people and deprive them of access to the educational opportunity. I would say that's how that should be. And if people have religious objections, they still have to do their jobs. Okay, yeah.
When were you pushing for that policy, and why did it fail, and who were you talking to about it?
The gender identity and expression?
The teacher evaluation.
Oh, there's this committee called the Diversity Committee. It's existed ever since the bake sale, which you've probably heard about. And
The bake sale.
the bake sale.
Berkeley bake.
What?
Sorry, I was thinking
Oh.
this is like it was at Berkeley, there was a big sale basically for affirmative action and like.
Yeah, this was like, tell
Okay.
about it, yeah. tell about it.
Yeah, so Berkeley, 3 years ago, they had a bake sale. Basically, the college Republicans, to oppose affirmative action, they were selling different baked goods, and like for white males it was $2, for females it was $1.50, for blacks it was $1, for Native Americans it was like 50 cents. So, and this got national news.
Yeah, and we did that at William and Mary in around 2005 or so. And, you know, some students were very injured by this, and some things that came out of that, well, one thing that came out of that was the appointment of a diversity committee, and it's been in existence ever since, and I've been on it most of the time. And the president leads it up, Sean Glover leads it up too, and it was a really, really big committee. I just found, I don't know, just that the administrative machinery, I just found myself not as powerful in that context. I mean, I didn't feel that we could get things done. So anyway, one recommendation came.
Sorry.
We said thank you, but you didn't hear it.
Oh. Thank you. We came forward with that recommendation. We made it to the full diversity committee. Now, it was not long before Gene Nickel, the president at the time, you know, ended up stepping down and said things were kind of a little bit crazy, but I would still advocate, and I've advocated that to my dean. I mean, I think that, and to the provost, because I see him pretty often. I think I think the school should have that in the on the faculty evaluation. Or at least encourage students to comment on it.
That sounds like a great policy.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Come for Professor Grover.
Yay. Yes.
Can I just, even along those lines, like, even if it wasn't just about, like, it's like other, I mean, even with, like, explicit laws against, like, racial discrimination, like, I went to, like, a WM Sure, like, event, and, like, a lot of people were talking about how they were, like, openly discriminated against because of their skin color in class also. So it's, like, that kind of policy, even if they're, like, even if people are, like, against homosexuality or something, like, they still can be discriminating against, like, legal things in our law.
Yeah, so I mean.
What are you talking about?
Right, because you're saying that in the classroom, some people are displaying bias toward particular groups, all kinds of protected groups, and we should be, yeah, I guess responding to you a little bit, saying, yeah, I mean, some of the people we're discriminating against in the classrooms are legally protected groups. Because certainly there are times when we have racial, certainly lots of age discrimination, and ethnicity, and race, color, the whole thing.
Our new T-shirt's gonna say legal things in the law.
So much hatred. Oh my gosh.
I accept you, Lily.
Okay, we should finish up. I really have to compliment you on the name William and Larry. Whose idea was that? It's such a brilliant name. Is that you?
I can't even remember though. It was Matt talking. Yeah, I think because
I'd like
we
to
kind
take
of did
credit
in
for
the
inspiring a same-sex relationships.
we tried to do like an Obamacare type of deal where you got, because it's something that people have said about the campus, like it's William and Larry, and we took it and tried to make it a positive thing.
Oh.
Like how they did now. Obama even calls the Affordable Care Act Obamacare.
Yeah, right.
Like
But I mean, who
reclaiming the
negatively?
spirit.
What? Who never said?
Somebody did on Facebook the other day, actually.
In a
It's-
positive
No,
way
it's
or-
like a joking thing that
That we're
so many
very-
gay people
yeah,
know
a
here,
lot of
then I
people
thought about William and
Yeah.
Larry.
Oh, here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sort of good, but I didn't know, but it was taken disparagingly.
I don't really think it's true though, because I've yet to meet most of them.
No, I don't think it's true. We're kind of underrepresented maybe, although not everyone is out yet.
Can I just say before we reach closure that Professor Susan Grover is one of the great citizen scholars of this campus, and she's been defending the rights of everybody for years, and we owe her a huge debt of gratitude. So thank you, Susan.